Okay, so some of the main takeaways that I took away from the reading is how underrepresented Native Americans are in all types of media, whether it's news media, television, movies, and other stuff like that. However, I did take away the main focus of it being because of the start of the history of how Native Americans were represented and how they were viewed at the time when they were found, and specifically with how they were categorized, because back then when white people did come to take over the lands of Native Americans, they were often categorizing Native Americans in two different ways. One being a noble savage, which is a Native American that is more considered to be easier to convert into Christianity and easier to be influenced into taking other traditions that white people did bring with them. And then there was another category called evil savages, which is similar to being seen like Native Americans who were often not so willing to change the way of their traditions and change into converting into Christianity and stuff like that. And so often than not, this would lead to like stereotypes of evil savages, where they would be seen as more of a like aggressive and not so open type of person in comparison to noble savages, where they would be seen as more calming and more easier to be influenced. And so with the lecture itself, I did take away the main point of the lecture being how colorism does play a factor in life currently and back then. And this is specifically more towards, because the lecture was more focused on how Black Americans are treated. However, it's not like colorism is focused on the discrimination of people of darker skin tones, which is similar to what Native Americans do have in comparison to white people. And so what I took away with a real life example is this is kind of similar to how the workforce is kind of shaped, and not only how the amount of pay is depending on like your gender, because often than not, men and women do have a pretty big pay gap, despite the fact that often than not they do have the same roles and positions. But this is also evident in the way the wage gap is in with like people of color, because often than not, if you look at the statistics, you will see a white man will have more pay in comparison to any other person of color, especially if they're a woman, which is unfortunately a big thing even now. And so it just focuses on the stereotypes and the racism that is often seen with people of color, and specifically with Native Americans. And so it's just really interesting to see how they would really push these ideologies onto Native Americans, and then when someone said no, they would be seen as more of a violent and evil person in comparison to just wanting to keep their traditions alive. But yeah, that's what I learned.